you said, you had a second surrender. What do you think? Because I think that this is an interesting point to talk about for anybody who's listening who may have that going on. What do you think? What did you surrender to? When we talk about surrender, like, are we surrendering to the fact that this is the problem really is spiritual in nature, and that I need to attack it from that sort of angle as opposed to all these other things that I'm trying? Or are we surrendering to the fact that, that there is still a solution and I'm not it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, both of those things, I guess. I don't know. Like, I surrendered to the idea that I can't do this on my own, and I talk about this in my story, but there's three fundamentals before you start working the steps in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the ABC. One, that I am alcoholic and I cannot manage my own life, right? And so I was looking at this life that I was living where I had already, started my own company and was living financially on my own means, kind of my own seventh tradition, supporting myself and my family, and everything that I was doing was through my own efforts, right? My career. I had a great workout routine. I was losing weight. I was finally feeling, having that body that I thought was going to make me happy. Continued going to meetings, and I was still getting a lot of positive feedback about my message, and even as an atheist, going in and being able to explain how the program was working for me without a God.
Yeah.
I was getting a lot of feedback and being able to connect with people who kind of felt that same way. Like, the evidence for God is pretty fucking thin, right? Type stuff. And being able to explain why I believed that stuff, so getting the feedback and not having a whole lot of unmanageability, like, as far as like it was when I first got sober. And so, like, having all those things, connecting with people and going to meetings, and then still feeling that darkness, I was able to surrender to this idea that the one thing that's probably missing is a connection with a power greater than myself. And so how am I going to surrender with it? And when I go back and I look at those ABCs, right, all that unmanageability equals alcoholism for me. Not the drink, but the unmanageability, right? I used alcohol to manage the way that I felt about my life being unmanageable. And so I'm alcoholic. My life is unmanageable. Probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism, which means none of the people in the meeting. I couldn't do it on my own. All that stuff that was working the prior 4 years wasn't working. I couldn't spin my way out of it. I couldn't talk my way out of it. None of that stuff, I couldn't have enough sex or food or any of the stuff that is on the physical plane could relieve me of that, because if it could have, I would have taken it. Because I don't want to be a God guy. I have a pretty good reputation around not being a God guy. It kind of feeds my ego, and I enjoyed that prestige of feeling different in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, being able to stay sober without a power greater than myself. But my own efforts and the efforts of the people around me cannot relieve me of that insanity and that darkness and that fear and that desperation of wanting to feel okay. And see, God could and would if he were sought. And so what am I to do? Either become willing and surrender to the willingness to be accepting of the possibility of a power greater than myself. And what am I willing to do to demonstrate that willingness? Or go on to the bitter ends, which would ultimately, for me, probably end in a drink, which would end in, at this point, who knows?
Yeah, yeah.